everyone, and welcome to this episode of KickSaga. This is the show where we talk with tabletop game creators both before and then right after they launch their projects on Kickstarter, so we can learn what they did to prepare and how things went afterwards. Today, I'm really excited to be chatting with Parker Simpson of Shiny Pigeon Games, and we're going to talk about his game Trash Dash, which I'm super excited to jump into. Hey, Parker, how you doing?
Good, Matthew. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. We were just talking before the show. I've gotten busy with things outside of the tabletop gaming sphere. And so I haven't had a lot of these videos coming out recently. So I'm glad you reached out to me and that we were able to schedule this. And I'm hoping this kickstarts, quote unquote, kickstarts me and this channel into doing some more of these interviews because I do have a blast doing them and I learn a lot.
They're super helpful because I've been watching the shows kind of since you've started doing them, and they've been super helpful to see kind of what other people are doing leading up to their Kickstarter and then kind of rehashing how it went. Really helpful to get it from that perspective. So
cool. Well,
hopefully there are many more episodes in the future.
Yes. I hope so too. Cool. Well, let's jump right into it then. Why don't you introduce yourself, kind of give us a little bit of a background on who you are, and then you feel free to jump into talking a bit about Trash Dash, what the game is, and kind of where the idea for it came from.
Sure. So a little bit about me. I think I've got the same kind of story as most designers of growing up playing a lot of games, being in like that hobby space. In like the late 90s, early 2000s, there was a lot of really exciting stuff going on with games. So as a youth, like that was a big part of my childhood, was playing board games, getting into like TCGs and stuff like that. Played a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon and that sort of things. But yeah, so flash forward to kind of doing my adult life thing. I'm a vet tech as my profession. I just recently left the field a couple of years ago, but that's what I've done majority of my adult life, is I've been a veterinary technician. But in our my early adult life, my wife and I, we were therapeutic foster parents, and we saw a lot of difficult stuff, kids from hard places coming through our home. It was really difficult work, but it was felt very meaningful, and being able to connect with those kids and have just not, I don't want to say peaceful, but like having a safe space for them to kind of come to the table and play a game really sparked that the desire in my head to start thinking about games in a deeper way, I guess. Because it's always just been like a fun playtime, whatever, growing up. But like seeing how that can impact other people in a way that brings a little moment of safety and like joy into the home. So that's been a driving force behind why I've started working on creating my own games, is to give that experience to other people and kind of share that.
Nice. Cool. That's kudos on the work you've done, both as a vet tech and as a foster parent. And it sounds like that's, like you said, very stressful but very important work, and it brought you to the world of hobby games and game design, which is super interesting to hear kind of the catalyst or genesis of where people start on this journey. And so it looks like you've got a game that's ready to go here. Where did Trash Dash, where did the origins of that start from? Where did you get the idea, and how long ago was that?
So I've been working on Trash Dash for about 2 years now. It's my first game. Well, my first game idea was terrible and convoluted and quickly abandoned in favor of doing something a little bit more simple. So Trash Dash is a racing board game where the players are street critters, so raccoons, possums, pigeons, that sort of thing. But they are competing to be the quickest critter in the city. So you're going to be racing around, an alleyway, making laps around, kind of Mario Kart style. You're grabbing items out of trash cans and using them to mess with your opponents. And in a game that is about scrappy street critters, there's a good bit of like poking the other players. So I typically like to be upfront with people about that because not everybody is into that. But yeah, so Trash Dash kind of originated out of this desire to make a racing game. And as an illustrator, I tend to pick projects that uh, allow me to kind of put some personality into the actual work. So designing these little critter characters and giving them their own little personality and characteristics and stuff drove the thematic choice of doing the street animals. And again, as a veterinary technician, like I have a heart for animals, and I worked pretty closely with animal control when I worked at the animal shelter. So seeing like feral cats coming through and like just working with the misfit animals that nobody really thinks about or cares about has always been kind of near and dear to my heart. So.
Nice. What kind of so first of all, I love a good racing game. I think there's
Mhm.
something about a racing game that just it's inherently exciting.
Mhm.
It's you can visibly see how you're doing throughout the game. So there's jockeying for position, there's going back and forth, and it makes for an exciting experience. So I love that it is a racing game. Um, I'm curious. Let's dig a little bit into like some of the mechanisms and stuff. So how does the game work? What mechanisms does it include? And um, maybe dig into a little bit of the design journey as far as working out those mechanisms.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. And in regards to racing games, the reason I was kind of drawn to that is there's an inherent understanding when you sit down to play a racing game. It's I need to be the first to finish whatever I'm doing. Whereas some other games, like the concepts behind them, are a little bit more I don't say like esoteric, but like they're not as straightforward sometimes. So racing, you have a very clear objective. And yeah, so in Trash Dash, it's your basic roll and move. You've got 2d6 and you roll them and you go that far, and then you do that until you finish the game. I'm just kidding. Not another roll and move. No. Dear God. Yeah, so Trash Dash is a card based system. So there's a communal action deck that players are going to be pulling from. So you've got your hand of cards. Each of them has a movement value, but they also have varying abilities. Some of them are basic, so they're just your move value. Some of them are attacks, so you've got a smaller move value but a high impact to another player. You'd be pushing them backwards. And then there are scare cards, which also have kind of lower movement values, but then they have the ability to let you discard cards from an opponent. So there's a good bit of like poking each other and messing with each other. But along the actual board, it's a modular setup. So you've got these track tiles that you'll be laying out at the start of the game to make specific setups. There's 6 standard sets that we tell you how to make at the beginning of the game. Or once you've gotten comfortable with it, you can kind of customize and make your own tracks if you want to, if you're feeling froggy. Um, but yeah, so you'll be racing around these alleyways. The different tracks have different numbers of laps that you have to complete. So each of the games feels a little bit more, a little bit different from the previous race. But you've got special spaces on the track. So you've got the titular space is our trash cans. So that's where you're going to be getting your special item cards from. Anytime you land on it, you're going to grab a trash card. These trash cards are either beneficial for you, detrimental for your opponent, or both. So, like I said earlier about like the Mario Kart vibes, like
Yeah.
there's definitely kind of power up, power level in regards to like items in Mario Kart. So.
Cool.
But yeah, so you've got your trash cans all throughout the alley. You've got cardboard boxes that you can hide in. So anytime you're on that space, you're safe from attacks and scares and trash cards and stuff. Um, there's spill spaces where you're going to slide across them if you land on them, which also counts in reverse. So if somebody pushes you backwards onto it, you're going to slide even further backwards. And then there's recycle bins that help you kind of recycle your hand of action cards. Since you're being scared and attacked and stuff, your cards are going to be dwindling a little bit. So it helps you kind of refresh a little bit. Outside of that, the other big mechanic is dashing. So that's a way to utilize matching cards. So anything with the same move value can be discarded to activate the dash. So that actually does let you roll a dice. I couldn't get too far away. Like I had to space away from dice a little bit, but this is kind of an optional effect that if you want to try to push your luck, you can discard the 2 cards and get bonus movement from the roll of the dice. You can continue pushing your luck by discarding more cards to keep re-rolling it if you want. But it does occasionally backfire because it goes up to 4. So it's a decent payoff if you can get something good out of it. But a lot of times you are going to end up with like a +1 or a +2. So I tell folks to be as cautious or as reckless as they want to be with that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's kind of the main gameplay of Trash Dash. Like I said, you're going to be racing around until somebody completes their final lap, and that'll trigger the end of the game.
Nice. Yeah, I typically don't like, take that or messing with your opponents in games, but for some reason in racing games it feels like it fits, right?
It feels
because
good.
you're racing with other people on a track, so it just kind of plays into it that you're going to want to mess around with them, especially if you lean into kind of the Mario Kart vibe of,
I mean, there's definitely a place in the market for like racing games where it's just you're doing your thing, like with Heat Pedal to the Metal, or like Downforce, where it's just you're going as fast as you can and you're like being strategic about how you take care of your own like vehicle and everything. So like I get why people wouldn't want like a ton of take that in a game like that, because you're managing your resources a little bit differently. Whereas in Trash Dash, there's plenty of take that if somebody ruins your turn, you're going to ruin their turn again. Like on the 3rd lap, you'll remember what they did on lap 1.
Yeah. When you lean into it like that, and that's kind of what the game is about, then that's great. And that you know what you're in for going into it, and you can really go back and forth with it. The games where it like has, one card that's like a take that card and the rest of the game is strategic, those can be very frustrating.
Yeah, and it feels out of place almost.
Right.
Where with Trash Dash, it's very inherent to the system of the game. It's expected.
Nice.
And that honestly does kind of tie into a bit of my philosophy as a designer. With Shiny Pigeon games, like I said earlier, like I want to create these pockets of safe space for people to come together, whether that's adults with adults, adults with children, children with children, like just whatever type of mixed group you have. I want there to be an atmosphere of, like I said, that atmosphere of safety where you can express yourself in a way that you might not be able to express yourself in reality. And a lot of that does kind of come with like pushing boundaries and being able to like mess with somebody in a inconsequential way. Where like, oh, if I won the race because like I like dogpiled you and pushed you back super far, like that's not going to affect our actual real life relationship. Like it's something that you can do and express in the game where it doesn't actually hurt that existing real life relationship.
Nice.
But yeah, so that's kind of my philosophy of a game designer is I want to create those safe spaces where everybody feels like they can be involved. It's accessible to younger players, but it's also fun for older players as well.
Cool. Sounds like a great space to work in. So let's talk a little bit about why you're going to Kickstarter. So was this always the plan to kind of self-publish? Did you consider, pitching to publishers? And what kind of drove you towards trying to do all this yourself?
That's a great question. So in the early space of exploring game design, that was kind of the big question in my mind of like, do I try to court publishers and try to pitch ideas? or do I lean into like the self-publication side of things? Ultimately, self-publishing won out for quite a few reasons. Number one is I want to be able to have more creative control of the process. I know that comes with a larger burden of actually having to make sure everything is exactly as it should be and the best that it could be. So there's a lot more pressure in that sense, but it also gives me a little bit more flexibility and freedom into creating the game specifically how I want it to be created. Also, like I said earlier, I'm an illustrator. So I do freelance illustration on the side. And that is, I hear that's one of the more expensive parts of creating a board game. So having that skill set already maybe feel a little bit more qualified to put a game together. And I know it's been super helpful, but it's also been a large time commitment because on top of the design work, there's also the artwork. Um, so the process has gone a little bit more slowly than it would have had I just been working on the design process. But I really do enjoy creating, like meshing the design side of things with the actual artwork and visual appeal. So
And so
bringing all of
you're
that
doing
together.
all the art for the game as well?
Mhm. Yep.
Awesome. Yeah,
Yep. So yeah, all the critters they're all hand drawn by me,
that's
which has
awesome.
been a lot of fun.
Is that
Um,
something you've had experience with before, doing like professional illustrations or other projects?
yep. So yeah, so doing the freelance stuff over the last few years, well, last few years, last like 8 years
Mm,
of doing like professional freelancing. Um, I've done a couple of other games, like illustrations for other games,
okay.
which has kind of led me further into the hobby space and has given me a little bit more confidence in that
Mm,
regard. I also did some like fan art cards for Star Wars Destiny, which is a TCG that I used to play. So all these like little steps of learning things along the way has kind of culminated and helped me to kind of get where I am right now, which has been a really cool process.
nice. So it's definitely a lot to do: illustrations, game design, all of that stuff. Is there anyone that you're using for help in any part of the project, whether it be, rule books or marketing, or any of that stuff that you've worked with to bring this game to life?
Yeah, so I, my friend Kim Breeze, I call her my board game fairy godmother. She's very well connected in like the board gaming community,
Mhm.
and she's helped me to kind of meet with a lot of folks and kind of find connections with like content creators, other designers, and people that can kind of speak into my design process.
Mm,
Um, the digital community surrounding like board game design is fantastic,
yeah.
and I've met so many cool people who have helped playtest. Nothing really in a professional manner in that process. But in the last like 5% or so of Trash Dash, I did partner with Game Weaver Games out of Georgia. They helped with some playtesting at Origins of 23. I was in the Unpub room
Mm,
and met up with them.
cool.
So they play tested the game. They gave me some really like insightful feedback. And then at the end, they were like, "Oh yeah, by the way, we're developers." I was like, "Oh, that's cool. Like I'll have to tuck that away." And
Yes.
then a year later, when I was at the point where I wanted to like pursue development work, reached out to them, and I felt like as my with this being my first like big release, I wanted to make sure that the game was as good as it could be. And playtesting with other people and everything has been super helpful. But I felt like there just needed to be a little bit more from a professional standpoint. So I brought them on to kind of help with the final polishing and to call out anything that may have been like a blind spot for me. It was super helpful. I worked with them for about 2 months. I got a lot of really good feedback. We made some pretty interesting tweaks that I was initially very resistant to.
Oh yeah.
But the more and more I played it with the adjustments, I was like, oh, that makes a lot more
Can
sense.
you offer like a specific
Yeah. Uh,
example?
so one of the things that I was fairly against was the special spaces. Like I said, there's four different special spaces, but they each had a different way that they activated. So with a trash can, you would land on it on your turn and get a power up, but you wouldn't do it if you landed on it being pushed back onto it. Um, which was always a question that came up, like
Mm, yeah.
by like lap two in a game with playtesters and stuff during demos. Um, but I've always been resistant to that. Be like, well, no, like they don't need to, like they just need to activate when you land on it on your turn. Um, but on the flip side, the spills activate on both sides. So when you're moving forward and moving backwards. So
Mm,
that was always like a small little thing that I had to always add into the rules explanation of like, this works like this, but this one doesn't. And also this one doesn't do anything until you're in it. Like there was a whole lot of like
right.
convoluted stuff that just did not feel streamlined at all. So they're like, well, why don't we do everything activates when you land on it, regardless if it's your turn or their turn, and figure out a way to make sure that it doesn't get out of control. Because my thought process was like there's gonna be trash cards everywhere, and everybody's gonna have power ups all the time. So I actually reverted back to the previous iteration where you could only hold one trash card at a time,
Mm,
and that worked.
nice.
Like perfectly almost, like because now you have that added strategic element to it of if I hit uh if I hit Matthew back onto this space, he's going to get a trash card, so maybe I'll wait until next turn to use this attack card instead, when I know that's not going to benefit him. Or you could see, oh, they already have a trash card, I don't have to worry about hitting them onto a trash can because they're not going to get another one.
Yeah.
So just little things like that that just seem inconsequential until you actually think about it more deeply and remember all of the times that people have asked these questions during
Yep.
demos. And
Right.
it's like, oh, maybe that is a problem.
Yeah, that's the
um,
benefit of bringing in like an outside developer, right? Because they'll
mhm.
point out those things that maybe as a designer you've just breezed over, or you kind of
Right.
taken
Yeah.
for granted, or you just explained during the teach, like, hey, this is a
Right.
thing, and just remember that. But then it's something else when someone brand new is trying to learn the game, you're not around, and then
Hmm.
there's going to be these exceptions they have to remember, and that just kind of
Exactly. Yeah.
slogs down the experience. And yeah, that's really helpful for someone to kind of be able to point that out, and then for you to be able to kind of take it and implement it and have it
Yeah.
turn out
It was
for the
hard.
better.
Like, don't get me
Oh yeah,
wrong. Like, I was resistant to it. I
it's
was
your
like, I don't know if
baby,
you
you don't
guys
want to
know what you're
change your
talking
baby.
about.
Yeah.
Like, I know you guys are professionals, but like,
Yeah.
uh,
Right.
but yeah, no, it was
Tough.
it was a fun process. And they challenged a lot of my like preconceived notions.
Mm,
And in regards to what you were just saying, is like I don't come in the box.
yep.
Like people are going to have the rule book, and that's what they're going to play it from. And if they don't remember these little like tiny things that aren't intuitive, it's not going to play as expected.
Right.
So that was kind of what they tried to continue to drill into me was making the game as intuitive for the players as possible. It doesn't matter what I think is necessarily intuitive because I've been in the game for 2 years now. Like when you sit it on the table with somebody new, they have to be able to pick it up and say, "Oh, well, it makes sense that if I land on this space, I'm going to get the thing."
Totally.
In that example specifically, but yeah.
Yeah. So and just jumping back to something you said earlier about you're kind of doing everything on your own, but you're uh, have the community kind of behind you to help, and that's I think what's kind of so cool about this community of game designers,
Oh yeah.
that they really feel like they're a part of your team sometimes, and
Hmm.
they're helping you with playtesting, they're helping you with advice, they're helping you with checking your rule book. And I think that's a big takeaway for folks listening to this who might be just getting started and might be wondering where to go, is just go seek out those communities. It could even be an in-person playtesting group if you're not
Mhm.
online that much. But there's lots of Discords and Facebook groups, and pretty much any social media you could find. You could find groups of game designers getting together, helping each other out. So that's a great place to go to get feedback, to get help, and you
Mhm.
can you're a testament to this. You can pretty much do everything yourself if you have a support of a super helpful community like that we have out
Sure.
there.
Yeah, and I would also highlight, if you are financially able to make it to like in-person events,
Yep.
like going to conventions and stuff, you will meet enough people at one convention that you'll be able
Right.
to connect with like such a large network. And like, I don't want to say like networking, like, because that's kind of like a dirty word, but like, you legitimately are like building these relationships with other people who are in the industry to have fun and create cool things. And it's weird because there's not a whole lot of like rivalries or like competitive nature to it, because like there's plenty of players to go around. Like
Yep.
everybody wants more, like they're not going to just buy one board game and just never buy another board game. So like I feel like the competitive nature is not as like stark as it is
Yeah,
in other industries.
totally. Uh, yeah, couldn't agree more with that. Okay, let's jump into some marketing stuff. So, curious to hear kind of what your approach has been to getting the word out about Trash Dash. What have you been focusing on? What have you been spending your time on in these months leading up to the Kickstarter launch?
Um, yeah, so a lot of like early on stuff has just been like organic. Um, Especially with the fact that like I'm doing the illustrations myself, so like I have fairly easy content that I can put together, where I can kind of share like the work in progress. I can share like new illustrations. I can share like more about like the characters and like their backstory, and then how that affects the gameplay. So just being transparent through the entire process has been helpful, and it's connected me with a lot of people who have gotten excited about the game because they knew about it before anybody else did, and they got to see like the earlier prototypes or whatever. Just having it open to the community and like available for people to look at and interact with is a very good way to get folks invested in it,
Mm.
because they want to feel like they're a part of something, and genuinely letting people come in and be a part of it is obviously the best way to do that.
And did you mostly do that through like conventions or?
A lot of it was just on social media.
Okay.
Once I started doing more like convention stuff, and like in person playtesting, that definitely elevated the amount of like interaction that I was able to get. Uh, Obviously, with like early prototypes and stuff, you're pretty apprehensive to share it with people because it's ugly and like it's not that good yet. Um, but doing like online playtesting was super great for that. But once it was in a position that I was able to kind of bring it out and feel like, okay, it's like 70% of the way like designed. Now I can start doing like in-person events and like playtesting groups and that sort of thing. Um, but leading on from that, the beginning of this year, well, end of last year, I would say, is when I started doing like actual demoing, where I would actually get like a table and set up, and um, it was kind of my transition from doing like playtesting to actually marketing with the game. So like making that distinction from, hey, I really need you like y'all's feedback, like tell me what worked, what didn't work, like this is what I've been working on to see like how these interactions would change things, versus being more public minded, and like wanting to build that community and um, like to build fans, like a fan base
Right.
for the game.
You kind of flip
Um,
the switch from getting feedback to make the game better to sharing the game with
mhm.
people and getting them
Yeah,
excited about it. And
yeah,
sometimes
exactly.
that line is blurred, right? Sometimes,
It is for sure.
you can be doing both or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, there is usually a shift where you're like, okay, now I'm focused on really just getting the word out about this game, not so
Mhm.
much about getting people to play it and give feedback on it.
Exactly. Yeah. So over the last, um, I'd probably say like 8 months, I've been more in that demo mode, and like promoting and stuff. But yeah, a lot of like in-person events have been really helpful. Like it's gotten me in front of more players. There's definitely a huge value in connecting with people face to face. Like a lot of folks, they will buy their games and like just go to like Target or whatever and buy games and not really think about the people behind it and like the team of people creating these products. Whereas if you're literally like, I'm the designer and illustrator and publisher, like
Yeah, right.
I'm the guy behind this game. Like it's great to be able to connect with people and like show them like this is a labor of love. This is why I'm doing this. Like this is why I'm creating this game, and I want to share it with people and have fun. Um, People connect with that.
Yeah,
Like if you're genuinely there to do what you're saying you're doing, um, it's a great way to kind of build those connections.
totally. Cool.
Yeah.
So what have you done? Sorry, I back up. One of the big things I think is that's becoming more and more important with a successful Kickstarter is getting some leveraging some existing channels or influencers, if that's what you want to call them, that do previews and kind of reviews and those kind of things. What has been your approach to that? Who have you talked to? And kind of because something I try to wrap my head around is, it, when it's time for me to launch on Kickstarter, how many content creators should I reach out to? Who should I
Mhm.
be targeting? What is my approach to that? So I'm curious what your approach to that part of it has been.
I mean, that's a huge like that's like the $1 million question. It's
Right.
like who do you like send your copies to?
Yeah.
So I'll start out by saying I'm a very frugal person. Like my wife and I, we pinch our pennies. So with this being something that I am not making any revenue from for another like 6 months,
Yeah.
um, because like when the Kickstarter funds, it'll fund the print order.
Right.
So like until I start selling more of the print order, like those profits aren't coming from anywhere. So this has been a project and pursuit that I've been doing for the last 2 years, basically unpaid. So like we've been trying to be mindful of like how much money we're putting into it. Um, but with that said, obviously you don't want to cut too many corners because you're going to end up with a poor product or like not enough reach to actually make it go anywhere.
Right.
Um, so my my avenue that I investigated was doing a larger amount of pre-production copies and sending it out to more places.
Okay.
Um, so the only paid content that I actually the only content that I actually paid for was through Tantrum House because I feel like their philosophy and audience is very much in tied to like how I it's very tied to my target audience. It
Right.
feels like it's the proper channel to pursue because they do a lot of stuff with like families, games that are accessible to younger players, and they have like that inclusive mindset. So I knew that I wanted to work with them. Um, I've Sorry, this is why I don't do live stuff.
And then how did you find the or how you, I guess how did you find the people that you're sending the review copies to?
Right. Yeah. So there's quite a few like Facebook groups for like reviewers and media folks, and I was able to kind of pitch the game in those groups of like, this is a family weight game. This is my intended audience. Like, this is the type of gameplay that it has. Like, if you feel like this is something that would align with your like values as a content creator, like, please let me know. And I ended up having a good bit of response from that. And I had a few other channels that I had in mind that I wanted to specifically reach out to. So it's kind of a mix of folks that I had already followed and knew that I wanted to reach out to, and new folks that felt like it would that felt like my game would be good for their channel.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool. And then how about like paid advertising? Have you done anything on social media or any other places?
I haven't. So I know that's probably a no-no for for a lot of like marketing folks. But like I said earlier, like I don't have a ton of like marketing budget
Yeah.
behind this, so I'm hoping that a decent amount of like grassroots movements will help from the last couple of years of demoing, from the content creators that I'm working with. Because I ended up printing 10 copies of my pre-production sample. So they've been making their rounds, and hopefully we'll have some great content coming out in the next coming weeks up to the Kickstarter.
So you have 10 copies and then you're sending them out and then having them forwarded to other places. Is that
Mhm.
kind of how that's working? So you're able to have those 10 copies get way more than 10 actual
Right.
reviews, right?
Yeah.
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 Cool.
And in retrospect, you think about it, like printing out, like getting that many printed copies done was several $100s, which you just have to kind of weigh where you want to put
Yeah.
your investment. And I
Yeah.
thought that um, getting high quality prototypes to send out to a larger number of people would be a beneficial way to go.
Yeah, it's there's really no right answer, right? There's so many different things you can do, and it comes down to, right, your budget and,
Yeah.
kind of what you think is going to be most important for your game on how many of these kind of avenues you pursue.
Mhm.
And with paid advertising, I don't think it's one of those things that I don't think that's required. It's something that if you do it, you could do it wrong and just waste a bunch of money, and or it's something that if you do it right, then it could be beneficial. But I think it's perfectly fine to say that's something I'm just not going to mess with,
Yeah.
and I'm going to
It's
pursue
better to
these
do
other
it's better
avenues.
to do a few things well than
Right.
do all of the things poorly.
Yep.
Which
I would totally
and
agree with
I
that.
knew that the things that I'm doing, like, I enjoy social media. I enjoy in-person events. I enjoy, like, connecting with potential customers. Whereas with advertising, like, I don't have a mindset for that. I don't feel gifted with like analytics and, and like that side of things. So
Yeah.
like I felt like leaning into my strengths would be more beneficial than trying to do all of the things. Now, that's not to say I won't run some Facebook ads, like leading into it, but
Right.
that just hasn't been the focus of my marketing efforts. Yeah.
Totally. Cool. So let's dig into the numbers, if you don't mind. This
Sure.
is the part where we kind of see how many followers and all that stuff on the different digital platforms you have, because that typically will then feed into the Kickstarter once you launch that. And then it's interesting to see how many of those actually convert to buyers. And I think that information is helpful for other folks who are building their audiences on different platforms as well. So if you want to start with Kickstarter itself, how you looking as far as followers over there?
Yeah, so on the pre-launch page, I'm at about 330 folks there, which all of these numbers are like today.
Yeah.
I have, like I said, I've got content creators in the works that are going to be releasing content over the next couple of weeks. Um, I've had two content creators do like a few things recently, and I have seen a
Cool.
significant boost
Nice.
because of that. So I am hopeful that like in the next couple of weeks, as more content is being released, that these numbers will
Numbers will
pretty
grow.
much go up
Absolutely. And when
pretty
when is this launching?
yeah, so we're launching on September 17th,
Okay, cool.
and it's currently what, the 28th, so like right before September. But
Yep.
yeah, so right now the Kickstarter page is at 330 followers, which feels pretty good, and it has gone up. It was at like 280 before content creators started posting, so it has been a pretty substantial boost from those. So I am
Nice.
optimistic that those things
What is
will.
your funding goal?
So the funding goal is going to be between 10 and 12,000.
Okay.
I still have to do some numbers from my profit and loss from my merch sales, which we can actually talk about that in a minute after we do the social numbers. But I did run a previous Kickstarter for uh, enamel pins of the characters from the game.
Oh, cool.
But we can talk about that in a minute because I feel like that's a separate
Yeah,
but
that's
interesting
interesting.
conversation.
Totally.
Yeah. But,
And what are you looking to sell the game for on Kickstarter?
yeah, so it'll probably retail at 40,
Okay.
and on Kickstarter we're probably going to do the Kickstarter price of like 35.
Nice.
So folks do have that little bit of incentive to back early versus waiting.
Cool. Um, okay, so just doing a quick math here, you're looking to get about,
We need between
around
like three and 400 followers
300,
or
400 backers. Okay,
converters.
cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Mhm.
How are you looking on your social platforms? And while you're giving those numbers, talk a little bit about like what social platforms you're focusing on and what you've done
Sure.
on
Yeah.
them.
So I've probably fumbled a little bit with my social media. So initially, when I started working on Trash Dash, I had not made the decision to self-publish yet. So the original Facebook page is just for Trash Dash, which has about 560 followers. Um, in the last, I want to say 6 months, like 4 to 6 months, I decided that it would be helpful to do a proper Shiny Pigeon Games
Hmm.
Facebook page
Yep.
and Instagram to kind of encompass everything that I'm doing because I do have some other projects in the works. Um, but the Shiny Pigeon Games one has not been as exponential.
Yeah.
And so getting people from the Trash Dash Facebook page to the Shiny Pigeon Games page uh, has been difficult. It's at about 170 on Facebook and about
And
60
and it,
on
it might
Instagram.
be hard until you get like another game. And then you're like,
Exactly.
okay, here's
Yeah.
this new game. We're talking about it on the Shiny Pigeons page. And then people will
Right.
start
Yeah.
moving over there. So yeah, that's fine. I mean, you have
Yeah.
two
But
pages. Those
the
both of
amount of
the followers on both pages know about the game and will hopefully
exactly,
get
yeah,
excited
and the
about it.
fact that like the Trash Dash page does have people interacting with it pretty regularly, being at about 560, like that feels pretty good
Yeah, cool.
for just organic like marketing. But
Totally.
yeah, that's where I'm at on social media is Facebook and Instagram. So if you're
Cool.
interested in follow the Shiny Pigeon Games.
Okay.
That's the lesson here is
Yeah.
follow the company.
I will and that'll be the link that I put in the
Perfect.
in the video here. So if people are interested in checking that out. How about emails? Have you been building an email list?
Yes, because the email list can never be taken from you.
That's right.
uh, Facebook goes under, Meta falls apart. Like I still have those emails.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's actually funny. I have the exact same amount of email newsletter subscribers as I do for Kickstarter subscribers. So
Oh,
I've got
interesting.
330
Okay.
folks on my email list,
Cool.
and that's primarily just come from the in-person events.
Yeah.
Um, I've done a few raffles where, like, if you sign up for the email newsletter, you're entered into a raffle for a voucher for the game. So I've done that at each of the in-person events that I've done, and I've had a lot of people interested in the game because of it. And it's super helpful to even just have like a QR code on your on your
Yeah.
table because I don't. You were at Tantrum Con, you saw how busy everything was between both
Yeah.
of our tables. Like it
Totally.
was there's a lot, and so just having that available for people to be like, oh, I'll scan that and look at it later, and then if they don't come
Yep.
back, they've still got it up on their phone. So it's been
Cool.
helpful.
Great. Any other platforms that you're building an audience on?
Nope, it's just Facebook, Instagram, email newsletter through my website, and then obviously on Kickstarter proper.
Cool. Talk a little bit about that first Kickstarter you ran. How did that go, and what
Yeah,
were the lessons learned there?
yeah. So the main intent with that, well, there's two main intents. One was to learn a little bit more about Kickstarter from the creator side of things, of actually like submitting your page, creating your page, going through the actual campaign process, and then also the fulfillment process. Um, and then also the secondary reason behind it was if I do profit off of any of that, that can go directly into lowering the funding goal for the board game.
Hmm.
So what I did, get them on my book. Um, so I did little enamel pins of all of the characters. So you've got your pigeon, your possum, raccoon, kitty cat, the other raccoon, and the rat. Yeah, so these enamel pins were funded pretty quickly on Kickstarter. A lot of people who follow the board game really connect with the critters, just because everybody loves cute little critters.
Nice.
So this was a way for folks to kind of get um, some like trash dash goodies before the game releases. And let me see the exact numbers, but I think we hit about 1700, which funded all six of the different characters.
Nice.
It was great. Yeah, it was 1775 pledged. So yeah, that was really exciting. It was great to learn how to do the actual back end of Kickstarter.
Yeah.
It's really great for learning how to like create the updates,
Right.
like send out surveys, collecting information, and that sort of thing. It was a really helpful learning experience on a smaller scale because it was like 50 backers. So
Yeah.
doing
Not
a
overwhelming.
yeah, doing a less less overwhelming campaign to start with, I felt like was going to give me the information and knowledge that I needed to do a big boy Kickstarter. So
Yeah.
it was really helpful, and it did end up putting a little bit towards that funding goal for the board game. And also, it funded a stock, so now I have additional enamel pins on my website that I can continue to sell and promote at events and stuff, which has been really great.
Cool. That's bringing us to the end of our journey here. What would you say, from your perspective, would be would you consider a successful project at the end when everything's said and done, and you're looking at how things went? What are you kind of setting as the level of success for you?
So it's less of a monetary thing and more of bringing the game into the world and having people enjoy it. But obviously, from like a monetary aspect, like just the minimum funding to do the print order is successful to me. If we overfund and we're able to create a bigger stock and share it with more people, that's awesome. But I'm trying to be cautiously optimistic, I guess. I'm hopeful that the print run will happen, that people will support the game and help it become a thing. Honestly, that's where I'm at with with my level of success is just bringing it into the world and having people enjoy the game. So.
Very cool. Well, here's wishing you all the success with that. Any other closing words of wisdom or anything you wanted to share that we didn't cover?
Um, no, I think that's about it. Just it's been an exciting journey to learn about game design and get this product into the market. Like I said, as an illustrator and a gamer myself, like just having the physical game has been really rewarding. But just being able to see other people interact with it and enjoy their time with the other people at the table is that much more rewarding that I get to be a part of it. So
Totally. Awesome. Well, good luck with everything. If you guys want to check out Trash Dash, I will have links. We will have links to the Kickstarter, as well as all the other various places you can follow it below this video. So definitely check it out. I really wish I would have had a chance to play it at TantrumCon, because it looked like a lot of fun, and we both had demo tables
yeah, we were both
in
slammed, man.
the demo area, and we were like looking over, like, oh, look, it looks like they're having fun over there. But yeah, one of these days I'll definitely check it out, and I'm sure we'll run into each other at a con in the near future. But otherwise, guys, thanks for checking out this episode of KickSaga. If you like this kind of content and you want to continue to follow the stories of these different folks going to Kickstarter, go ahead and click that subscribe button below. Click the bell icon to be notified of new episodes. I'm going to try to get some more new ones out here coming up, get back into the swing of things. But for now, thanks for checking it out, and take care. Bye.